Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. You know that feeling when you're sitting at home on a weekend, totally free of obligations, and suddenly you just feel this creeping sense of unease? I mean, you should be relaxing, right? You've got the comfy couch, maybe a great cup of coffee, but instead you're pacing around. Your mind is just racing, actively looking for a problem to solve. Well, today we are exploring the architecture of human purpose. We're going to unpack the fascinating biological and philosophical reasons from our source material to understand exactly why we constantly struggle with how to spend our day. It's a completely uniquely human problem, and once you understand the hidden mechanics behind it, it's going to completely change how you view your own free time. So let's start by addressing that incredibly uncomfortable, uniquely human paradox. Why do we absolutely hate feeling empty? Just think about it for a second. Despite all the wild scientific advancements we have today, and despite the fact that for a lot of us, our basic primal survival needs are completely met, we've got a roof over our heads, food in the fridge, physical safety, we still suffer. We are literally the only living beings on Earth who actively experience psychological pain just from having an empty mind. Logically, we should be perfectly content just existing in all this comfort. But no, instead, we constantly stress over what we're doing, where we're going, and how we're going to spend the next hour. To really wrap our heads around this burden, we first need to look at Section 1, the human emptiness paradox. This right here brilliantly illustrates the core difference between us and the rest of the natural world. While other animals are entirely anchored in the present moment, like it is only the immediate right now that matters to them, the human experience is vastly different. We are uniquely burdened by how we perceive time. Think about a dog. A dog isn't agonizing over some awkward mistake it made 5 years ago, and it certainly isn't stressing out about its 10-year retirement plan. Humans, on the other hand, we're the only animals who spend our time obsessing over the past, overanalyzing the present, and plotting out a future. We don't just want to exist day to day, we desperately want to leave a legacy to outlast us. Let's pivot for a second over to the animal kingdom for Section 2, the Animal Survival Program, just to see how their simple agenda operates completely free of all this existential dread. What's really fascinating here is just how beautifully mechanical their daily routine is. An animal's life is entirely dictated by the harsh, simple rule of survival of the fittest. First, they wake up. Second, if they're hungry, they go out and hunt. If they aren't hungry, they'll literally just lie around doing nothing at all to conserve their precious energy. And third, when they reach the right age, they reproduce if the opportunity pops up. That is the whole shebang. That's the entire scope of their day-to-day existence. There are no side hustles, absolutely no midlife crises, and definitely no desperate searches for a true calling. Animals don't have to agonize over how to spend their day because their priorities are already strictly programmed right into them from birth. Their hardwired biological priorities are simply fight or flight, rest, digest, and reproduce. That's the entire operating system. And because of this, there's just no biological room or need for existential dread. When a lion is sitting under a tree doing absolutely nothing, it isn't sitting there feeling guilty about being unproductive. They don't experience an empty mind as suffering. To them, it's just rest. Which perfectly sets up Section 3, our brain's crown jewel. Let's see how human biology takes that simple animal programming and just radically departs from it. The crucial turning point here is a total biological marvel, the prefrontal cortex. This is, without a doubt, the crown jewel of the human brain. It's our ultimate executive center. It is entirely responsible for our high-level consciousness, our rational thinking, and our incredibly complex decision-making. It's the exact part of you that sets long-term goals, suppresses your immediate urges, and creates art. Because we have this highly evolved crown jewel, we are fundamentally separated from every other living being. We are not just survival-driven machines. We are highly aspirational thinkers. And because of this highly developed executive center, just surviving simply isn't enough for us anymore. It's really not. We have a strict biological and psychological imperative to feel passionate about something. We have this intrinsic, inescapable need to do purposeful work that actually means something. When we're engaged in something real, whether that's building a business, raising a family, or mastering a really difficult skill, it makes us feel profoundly valued and appreciated. Our brains quite literally demand meaning. It is the definitive line between merely surviving and truly thriving. But what happens when we don't have engaging, purposeful work to occupy those highly conscious minds of ours? That brings us to Section 4, purpose versus instant pleasure. When there's no meaningful work to fill our minds, we run straight into that dreaded emptiness we talked about earlier. And as we established, we deeply, deeply despise the feeling of an empty mind. The psychological silence is just deafening to us. We literally cannot stand to sit alone in that void. So, without a meaningful, complex task at hand to keep that powerful prefrontal cortex busy, we inevitably resort to indulging in hollow, instant pleasures. You're probably going to recognize these everyday, instant pleasures in your own life. Let's be honest. Think about your default habits when you have a free evening. When we lack purpose or a clear target, we resort to watching hours of TV, endlessly doom scrolling on social media until our thumbs literally ache, binging random videos, drinking, smoking, eating junk food when we aren't even physically hungry, or gossiping about other people. These aren't just random character flaws or personal failures. According to the source material, these are the direct symptoms of a powerful prefrontal cortex that is currently missing a meaningful target. They're basically just the quick, cheap dopamine fixes we use to desperately escape the suffering of a bored mind. This quote captures the profound final takeaway of our explainer perfectly. Unlike other animals, human life is not only about survival, but we are aspirational due to our consciousness. You are not just some biological survival machine programmed to simply rest, digest, and reproduce. You are a uniquely highly conscious being. So that creeping restlessness you feel on a quiet Sunday afternoon when you have nothing to do, that isn't a bug in your programming, it's a feature. It's your brain's incredible crown jewel loudly demanding a larger purpose so it can thrive. So knowing that your brain strictly requires meaning to function at its best, and knowing that endlessly scrolling through your phone and chasing instant gratification are just temporary bandages for an unoccupied mind, I want to leave you with this. What legacy are you building to fill your emptiness? How are you going to choose to satisfy your mind's crown jewel today?